Hello, good evening, or as Thomas Dolby's doctor would say, hello. But anyway, this is Pat's Movie Mania, and this is episode number 6, and it is Sunday. It is May 24th, and we're doing it again. So those of you who have been watching, this is another one for you. We're going to do a couple of movies. We're going to run down our top 10 list this year from 1983. And our director spotlight this week is on Wes Anderson. So, let's start with a movie review, and this is a movie that's, well, it's a few years old, but it's fairly new. It's called A Quiet Place, Day 1, and the third of the Quiet Place series, and they've all been pretty scary. If you're not familiar with the story, these aliens come down to Earth, and they obviously have very good hearing. If they hear any noise, you're pretty much dead, so you have to be very quiet around them, or else you're going to die a horrible death. And it stars Lupita Nyong'o, and she's an Oscar winner herself, and she's kind of like a mentally disturbed person, probably more like autistic, but she's not stupid, and she's one of the last survivors, as everybody around New York City is being eaten or whatever by these aliens, which are very ugly, by the way. And she has a cat with her. The cat actually steals the show. His name was, well, I don't know what his name was, but he was played by two cats, one named Frodo and one named something else, which I don't remember, but he kind of stole the show, and as cats will, and being a big cat fan, it helped me watch the movie. But she keeps her cat somehow throughout this whole movie, all these aliens running around, and he gets lost a few times, but she always ends up finding him. Imagine that. And she has to go, maneuver through New York. She's actually looking for a slice of pizza, which she just wanted from the beginning, because she was in a rehab place, and they wouldn't give her pizza, so she was looking for a slice of pizza, and while these aliens are all over the place killing people, and she had to be real quiet. Again, very scary. I'm not a big horror fan myself, but these Quiet Place movies keep you on the edge of your seat. They truly do. Matter of fact, I watched this one on my Halloween night doubleheader with I can't remember what the other movie was this year, but this one was the first one. It was really scary. And Alex Wolff is also in it. The ending is cool. I won't tell you anything about the ending, but it's good. So, Quiet Place, Day 1. And that is also, it's available on Prime right now if you have that. Our second movie is a bit older. This is from 1999, and again, not a big rom-com fan, but I do watch them because it's a genre that is popular and still is. So you have to watch them if you're a movie fan. Hopefully you run into a good one every now and then. This is one. This is from 1999. It's called 10 Things I Hate About You, and it stars the late Heath Ledger. This was actually his first American movie, and Julia Stiles, among others. But they're the two leads, and it's kind of based on Taming of the Shrew. There are some Shakespeare lines in it, if you're familiar with them, that you'll catch. And the upshot of the plot is that Julia Stiles is the older sister, and her younger sister wants to date, but the father, who's played by Larry Miller, decrees that she cannot date until her older sister, Julia Stiles, dates. And Julia is very revolutionary, anti-male, anti-dating kind of girl, and she doesn't want anything to do with it. So a couple of guys who want to date the younger sister hire Heath Ledger to take her out so that they can date the younger sister. And I'm sure you know what happens from there. But it's really good. It's cute. It's not sappy like a lot of them are. Heath Ledger, you watch them and you're thinking, how horrible such a talent died so young. It was really sad to watch him in this. He had a lot of potential, and he made a lot of movies, but he could have been doing more. There's a scene in it where he is at the football stadium, and she's on the field practicing soccer, and he sings "You're Just Too Good to Be True." Really a good scene. Kind of hokey, but still funny, and really well done. And there's a lot of good supporting characters in it. As I said, Larry Miller plays the father. Allison Janney has a real funny bit as a principal who's writing a porno novel, but no one knows that, of course, and she's kind of funny. She's not in it enough. She would have been funny if she was in it more, but she wasn't. But the movie on itself, on a whole, is very good. For if you're a rom-com fan, don't miss it. You know, this is also available on Disney and Hulu. So if you see it, you want to watch this kind of movie, go for it. It's out there. So that brings us to, if I can turn the page here, tonight's top 10 list, and this is 1983. Not a bad year for movies, probably not quite as good as 82 or 84, but not bad in its own right. So we're going to start at the bottom with number 10. My number 10 movie from 1983 is Tom Cruise's vehicle, Risky Business. This is the one that pretty much made him a star. 3 years before Top Gun, and you know the story. He's a high school kid, and he hires a prostitute. She ends up moving in with him, and he becomes technically their pimp along with his friends, his high school friends, and of course he falls in love with her. But there's just a lot of funny stuff in here. The director, Paul Brickman, didn't do a lot of movies, but when he did them, they were good, and this was good. It was funny. It was a typical early 80s movie, and Tom Cruise really shined, along with Bronson Pinchot, Rebecca De Mornay as his girlfriend / prostitute. A lot of people had small roles in it. Richard Mazer does a good cameo as a college applications officer, and Joe Pantoliano is absolutely hilarious as the real pimp. So, Risky Business, only available on rental. So that brings us to number 9, and number 9 is Silkwood, starring Meryl Streep, Kurt Russell, and Cher. And you all know the story of this, where Karen Silkwood played a whistleblower in a nuclear plant in Oklahoma, and she was met with a untimely death in her car. And one of the drawbacks of this movie is that you know how it's going to end. If you knew the story, which I'm sure everybody did by that. But Meryl Streep is amazing as usual in it. Cher is one of her first movies. She did a good job, and Kurt Russell played a, kind of like rural kind of guy, mechanic, and he was just wonderful in it. Like I said, you know how it's going to end, but they did a good job on this movie. This is also only available on rental. So that's number 9 for 1983, Silkwood. So brings us to number 8. This is the movie that won Best Picture that year, Terms of Endearment, and I really like this movie. It's your basic tearjerker, but when you have a cast like Shirley MacLaine, Jeff Daniels, Deborah Winger, Jack Nicholson, it's hard to argue with it. Jack Nicholson won an Oscar for Supporting Actor. Shirley MacLaine won for Best Actress. The movie won Best Picture, and one of Jeff Daniels' first big roles, and he was really good in this. A lot of people singled out Shirley MacLaine's performance, and no doubt it was great, but Deborah Winger, this was probably her best work that she ever did in her career, at least in my eyes. It's going to have you crying at the end, of course. It's that kind of movie. James Brooks directed it, won Best Picture. It's good, though. Definitely see it. It's on Paramount, it's on Pluto, Peacock, all kinds of stations. You can find this anywhere. From 1983, number 8 on my list, Terms of Endearment. Let's bring us to number 7, one of my favorite comedies of that year, and that is Trading Places. This is Eddie Murphy's second big role after 48 Hours, and he was just as funny in this as he was in that. This is more of a comedy, whereas 48 Hours is more of a cop action kind of movie. This was just a straight comedy with Dan Aykroyd, and you know the story where Eddie Murphy was a street person, Dan Aykroyd was a rich stockbroker, and they kind of switched places. Not on their own doing, on their bosses, but Eddie Murphy became the stockbroker, and Dan Aykroyd ended up being a bum with Jamie Lee Curtis in the supporting role as the hooker with the heart of gold, as we've seen in so many movies. But the thing about this movie is it's funny. So if you're going to do a comedy and it's funny, it's going to be successful, at least in my eyes. So definitely go out and see Trading Places if you haven't seen it yet. That is number 7. It's available on Stars, and just so many funny things in this movie. Of course, Eddie Murphy steals it, as he did pretty much every movie back then that he was in, and he really made it worth watching. But Dan Aykroyd was good too. You can't take anything away from him. He played his role to the best of his ability, um, just like you picture him. So, which brings us number, let's see, what is this, 6? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Yes, this is a movie that a lot of the critics didn't like. I did. I was more familiar with the story than a lot of people, and that's Star 80. The story of Playboy centerfold Dorothy Stratton, who was killed by her crazy husband, and he also killed himself because there was jealousy over her career and other men and that kind of thing. And this was directed by Bob Fosse. Again, very good work by Eric Roberts. I thought he was just amazing in this. Don't know that he ever rose to those heights again, but he played Paul Snider perfectly. Was Mariel Hemingway miscast as Dorothy Stratton? Hard to say, but you know what? She pulled it off. I could have probably seen others in the role, but you had what you had, and she did a good job. Very tragic movie. Again, just like Soapwood, you know how it's going to end. But Eric Roberts commanded the screen so much, it's well worth seeing. Hard to find. It's only available on rental right now. I saw it at a theater in Cleveland area called Randall Park Mall. That's because it never played around where I was living, so I got one up there and saw it. This was back before the days of rentals, so I had to run up there to see it because I'd heard so much about it, and I enjoyed it. Very good movie. Star 80, which brings us to number 5, and this is, in my opinion, one of the best adaptations of a Stephen King story made. That's The Dead Zone, with Christopher Walken, Brooke Adams, Tom Skerritt, Anthony Serb. Really faithful to the Stephen King story. It's about Johnny Smith, who's played by Christopher Walken, and he's kind of like I don't want to call him a psychic or whatever. When he touches people, he can see their future. Not necessarily the future, but their future. And he gets to the point where he starts thinking, he should maybe go do things to stop certain bad things from happening. And he's really not happy with it, but he has it. And there's Martin Sheen plays a crazy kind of guy running for president, and Christopher Walken sees in the future that he's going to start a world war. So he has to decide: is he going to kill this guy, or is he going to let him go? So I won't tell you what happens, of course. But Christopher Walken, perfectly cast in one of his earlier roles after The Deer Hunter. And Brooke Adams plays his girlfriend. Anthony Zerb's excellent as he hires Christopher Walken to tutor his son. And Tom Skerritt, really good as the sheriff in the town, who knows that people are being murdered, and he knows that Johnny knows who it is and tries to get the information out of him. And again, sad ending, but good movie. And again, very faithful to the book. There were some changes, but all in all, it was one of the better adaptations of Stephen King's story. The Dead Zone, number 5. Which brings us to number 4. Now, this movie, believe it or not, I saw in theater in New York when I happened to be visiting there in 1983. In my mind, one of the funniest movies ever made. That's National Lampoon's Vacation, with Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, among others. This is the kind of comedy they made in the early 80s that you probably won't see now. Just plain funny. John Hughes wrote this, and John Hughes can write comedy with the best of them, and he did it in this one. He didn't direct it, he just wrote the screenplay, and what a job he did. There's just so many funny things, and John Candy's cameo at the end is just roll on the floor laughing kind of thing, and even the kids are funny. Imogen Coca plays Aunt Edna, and of course Randy Quaid breaks out his Cousin Eddie role, who one of my favorite all-time comedy characters is Cousin Eddie with Randy Quaid. He just it's just hard to watch him without laughing. But National Lampoon's Vacation from 1983, available only on rental from what I can tell here. So if you haven't seen it, you got to get out and see it. Which brings us to number 3. This is a definitely much discussed, controversial kind of movie. This is Al Pacino's Scarface, directed by Brian De Palma. And I have to admit, when I first saw this movie, I didn't really like it. I went in expecting something else, and I got this, and I was kind of like, what's this story about, and all this, and a lot of violence, a lot of over-the-top kind of scenes. But the movie has aged into like what you might call a cult classic. It's quoted from everybody in other movies. And Al Pacino himself said that this was his favorite role and that he thought he did the best job in. And he played a Cuban drug lord who, well, he wasn't a drug lord when he was in Cuba. When he moved to America, he became one, and he got real rich and powerful. And you know what's going to happen when that happens. But it's a long movie. It's almost 3 hours, but it's worth it. You know, again, campy, but still, Al Pacino did such a great job with his accent. You really believed that he was Tony Montana. You really did. There's also Michelle Pfeiffer does a wonderful job as his wife, and Robert Loggia is the drug lord that Al Pacino starts working for and ends up killing and taking over his business. A lot of good people in it. Early role for F. Murray Abraham, Stephen Bauer. Just a real good, you know, movie about a drug lord if that's your thing. Which, like I said, after I watched it the second and third time, I really started to like it. So that's available on Prime if you have that, and I highly recommend it. So that brings us to number 2. We're getting close. Ooh, this was a tough call. This was a tough call this year. My last 2 movies. Number 2, I have Philip Kaufman's The Right Stuff. This is 2 different stories. It's a long 3-hour movie. One story is about Sam Shepard playing Chuck Yeager, who becomes the first person to break the sound barrier in a plane or a jet, and the other story is about the 7 original Mercury astronauts. Again, a virtual who's who of good acting back then. Scott Glenn, Ed Harris, Dennis Quaid. I already said Sam Shepard, Barbara Hershey. Just a who's who of that era's good young actors. And the space scenes are amazingly recreated by Philip Kaufman. You almost think it's real footage. That's how good it was. And again, a 3-hour movie with never a boring part in it at all. And one of my favorites. Again, another one I had to go to Cleveland to see because it never played in the area I'm in, Youngstown. So that's where we saw that. And that's also only available on rental. So get out and see that if you haven't yet. Which brings us to our number 1 pick for the year. Like I said, between this and The Right Stuff, I went with this. A lot of people aren't going to like it, but it is The Big Chill. And a lot of critics didn't like this because they said it was a rip-off of the Return of the Secaucus 7, and maybe it was, but they did a great job with Lawrence Kasdan's second movie after Body Heat. Again, a who's who of great actors, and you have William Hurt, you have Kevin Kline, Joe Beth Williams, Mary Kay Place, Glenn Close, Tom Berenger, and these were all people who were at their peak then, you know. And it's just a simple story of old friends who get together for a funeral, and one of them kills himself. It takes place somewhere in the South. They don't really ever say where it was, but it was at Kevin Kline's house, and he was rich from selling tennis shoes. And just, you know, a lot of dialogue, great dialogue, great performances all around. The beginning scene is just, it caught me right from the beginning. I won't tell you what it is, but it's really, really neat. So, The Big Chill, available on Tubi. Check it out, if you will. I'd watch it again tomorrow if I could, but I got to keep watching new stuff, so, or else I couldn't keep doing this. So, that's it for our movies for the year, or for the week, and I'd like to talk a little bit about our director spotlight today, and put my notes away when I still need them, but anyway. This week we're focusing on Wes Anderson, and Wes Anderson is one of my favorite directors. Like, you call him like a rich man's Jim Jarmusch, I don't know, something like that. He's just another one of those directors that he makes the movie he wants. He doesn't care about studio control. He doesn't care about target audience. He doesn't care about advertisers. He makes the movie like he wants to make it. Now, are they everybody's cup of tea? Absolutely not. I've seen people go to his movies in the theater and come out going, "What was that?" You know, and you just have to understand his style. His visual style is amazing. Nobody except maybe Oliver Stone used more different cameras during a movie than he does. More different sorts of cameras, I should say. Some of his stuff you might have seen. He started with Bottle Rocket, then Rushmore with Jason Schwartzman. The Grand Budapest Hotel was one of his better ones. Moonrise Kingdom was my personal favorite. Most of these movies are available on video. Asteroid City was one of his more recent ones, the second to last before the Phoenician Scheme. Again, a lot of people aren't going to like these movies. They're more stylish than story, and once you get used to his style, you'll enjoy them because you know what's going to happen, and it's very different, and not in a Jim Jarmusch or Henry Glum way, but in his own way, and he's not going to stop, and I'm glad that he gets the support that he does from fans, so he can keep making movies. Again, Wes Anderson, you see something directed by him, and you have like a little, able to think outside the box, check it out. Well, that's going to do it for this week. I have some other things to do now, so I will see you next week, hopefully, and until then, have some popcorn for me, okay? See you later.